playing another game of historic best of 3, playing Simic Merfolk on our deck with Phyrexian Revokers in the sideboard, and matchmaking is nice and quick. We're playing against OP's deck or Op's deck. I am fairly certain we've played against this player before. All right, we have played against Op's deck before, and they were on Hammer Time. These kind of aggressive combo decks are a good reason to double check and see if you know who you're playing against. All right, this gives us some early blockers, some disruption, and some tapping late, so I think this is fine to keep. Our plan here is going to be to play that Cenote Scout and only use the shoreline if we have to. Taking life early can matter against this deck, but we're probably way behind if it does. Merfolk Trickster is going to be good enough from a disruption point of view that we want to keep it here. I think it's one of the only 2-drops we would not pitch. All right, red, white, Kemba Outfitter. So that indicates they are on Hammer Time, and we're expecting a equip 1 hammer next turn. So we're going to get in with the Cenote Scout. Don't think they're going to block with the Outfitter. They're probably planning to suit it up. And we can afford to take a hit from a hammer here. So we're going to play the Breeding Pool tapped and Shoreline Scout the Reach. That leaves us our 2 instant speed disruptors up and our 2 1-drops to get in and chip in for damage while we're waiting. They can also sit back as chump blockers as well. These decks often have ways to protect their creatures or grant protection to their creatures. Oh, interesting. Not a hammer. All right, well, let's drop that and swing in with both of our creatures. See if he blocks anything. He could play an equipment here. That tells me he probably does not have a good 1-mana equipment. Now, do we prevent this trigger? No, it has equip 1. There's no sense in preventing the trigger here, so we will let that equip. So we have to wait to start our combat here so that they can't equip it on the Ornithopter instead. Now we're going to Merfolk Trickster and tap down that Kemba's Outfitter. Big risk here is something like Surge of Salvation, where they get hexproof. Oh, only hexproof. That's not too bad. So now the question here is whether or not we block the Outfitter or we take the 12 this turn. I think we take the 12 while we can, and then we keep back chump blockers if we think we need to. All right, so we've got a Tidebinder up and 3 creatures on the board. So I'm going to attack with the 2 2/2s and plan to use the Shoreline Scout as a blocker if we get the option. There's always the possibility he has a way to push that Kemba Outfitter through the Shoreline Scout or remove it, in which case we'd have to chump block with the Tishana's Tidebinder, which is not ideal, but is definitely an option. All right, we got a Shrapnel Blast on our Scout. So we're going to have to block with the Tidebinder when he attacks here. No value out of that trigger other than blocking and living another turn. So we were kind of hoping for a land here. We have to keep at least 2 blockers back. So we're going to play the Silvergill. It's the longer odds play. Usually we want to play a Tunnel Guide first, but if we hit a untapped land off of the Silvergill, we play the Tunnel Guide as well, and that'll change our decisions for who we attack with. So Silvergill comes out, we hit an untapped land, gives us a second blocker. So we're going to get in with both of our 2/2s and he's going to have a way to deal with a Mutavault and a Silvergill. We're less worried about protection from a color in this scenario. All right, Stoneforge. What equipment is this going to be? Probably a Shadow Spear, right? Yeah. So then he can give that Kemba's Outfitter lifelink. We still have to chump block here. So that puts him quite a bit further ahead. Oh, I missed the trample on the Shadow Spear, and that just kills us. I should have scooped to that if I was paying attention. All right, things we want to deal with. We want to bring in Phyrexian Revoker. That can hit the Stoneforge Mystic, it can hit the Retrofitter Foundry, it can hit equipment. It is great overall. Tishado's Tidebinder is also an all-star here. We can use Mind Singers to take away their creatures. So one of the weaker points of the deck is they can run out of targets for their equipment pretty easily. They don't usually bring in a lot of other removal here. Tail swipes and eaten by piranhas unless we see a lot more creatures. Played against a pure kind of red-white artifact, more mid-rangey, earlier on yesterday, and we definitely needed the removal there, but this seems like more of an all-in Hammer Time build. Things we don't need in this matchup are card advantage, so we're going to take out the Silvergill Adepts. The tapping from the Marrow Regeries can be useful, so we generally keep them in even though they're a little bit slow. I'm going to drop 1 Kamena here and 2 Shoreline Scouts out. They're just, all they really act as is chump blockers. The mana fixing is nice, but we really want to stop on 4 lands in this matchup. So I think that's what we're going to bring in. Being on the play for this game hopefully will give us a little more of an advantage. So we've got decent mana to start off. We can go Glasspool Mimic into Storm Giants into Cavern. We lack green mana for a potential Cavern, but with the amount of disruption we have between Revoker, Trickster, and Tidebinder here, we definitely have to keep this. Two mulligans, that's good news. Can I get a third? All right, they're on 5 mana on the draw. So tapped land seems like a fine turn 1 play. So without the Ornithopter and Retrofitter Foundry combo coming out right away, we're less worried about it. So I'm just going to hit the most common card that we worry about in this matchup in the Colossus Hammer. That's the card I'm looking for. Let's see what he's got. Oh, the hammer is going to get attached. No, we're going to let him hit with it this turn. We have a couple of Tricksters and a Tidebinder to slow them down from here. So we can attack with the Phyrexian Revoker and hope we find an Odawara maybe to bounce that Kemba's Outfitter and keep him from attaching another Colossus Hammer. Well, we're not going to let him go get that lifelinker again. So we're just going to take away that Stoneforge's abilities. We're going to have to block with the Tishana's Tidebinder, but it's worth it to get rid of the card advantage here. All right, we got another Tidebinder up, but I think we're going to rely on the Trickster for this one. See if we can work our way towards a green land with that Merfolk Tunnel Guide. We still don't want to attack with that Revoker unless we have to if we're going to lose it. It is going to act as a colorless creature as a way to buy out of protection from blue or green. So we'll play the Trickster. He may give that Outfitter hexproof. Oh, he's got a Sword of Wealth and Power. Collected Company that we unfortunately have to pitch because we don't have the right colored mana for it. That's an interesting question. Do we potentially convert a Trickster or a Tidebinder? I think we play the Shoreline Scout and hope we draw a different land to convert. Pump the Tunnel Guide up to 4. Pitch the Glasspool Mimic. I don't think this is worth a green land to lose one of our disruptive creatures. So we'll decline for now and get in with the team. We definitely have to put pressure. Every card they draw could be an equipment or a way to prevent us from slowing them down. An Esper Sentinel here isn't much of a threat besides adding another blocker to the board. All right, now we Trickster the Kemba's Outfitter, tap down their biggest creature. Hexcatcher will be good for next turn. I think that actually makes it lethal. So he can block 3 of our creatures, so 5, 6, 3, and 3, and he will take, oh, he'll only take 5. So we are not going to attack with the Revoker here. We have to attack with just those. He is going to have to block with all 3 of his other creatures, though. That's an interesting choice. All right, let's put a Lord into play. And we've got lethal. So they could have stalled for another turn and gotten away with it. Seeing the number of creatures he put out, I think we want to bring in some tail swipes for this game. I need to start or stop second guessing that playing against these equipment decks. So we'll bring in the tail swipes, take out 2 more Shoreline Scouts, and one of the Pearl Tridents, because they often just end up being speed bumps as well. Now, even more challenging on the draw against the Hammer Time deck. They are known for being explosive, so we are going to have a decent draw, or they're going to have a bad one. That could be all right. So I think we're going to keep this with the plan to play the Breeding Pool into a Sanctum and counter something. We might not get the opportunity. Might be a little bit too slow, but this is considerably better than an average 6. Oh, that's a lot of mulligans on his side. One of the downsides of playing a combo deck is they lose often to their own deck. And that's another win for us, taking us up the Mythic ranks.